So the saying is, don't ever meet your heroes. And for me, there's one car that lived on my wall as a child, that poster car that I thought I'd never even see, let alone drive. And in 2022, Petrolheads was invited to be part of GR8 in Belgium. Huge Belgian event in Kortrijk in the expo. And Dries, the owner of the show, reached out to my good friend Darren, who runs Air Shroud in the UK, and said, "Hey man, we've got some space. We want you to bring over some cars. Can Ciro get involved with some supercars? Can you get Zach's Garage involved? Because we want the Koenigsegg there." In fact, that's another story in itself, because the Koenigsegg had actually been agreed as the poster car, but back in 2021, and then it went a bit quiet, and then all of a sudden there's billboards going up with the Koenigsegg. So it kind of had to be there. So we spoke to Zach, I got involved, and we started putting it out there to the community to bring cars together. And I was going to drive my Lamborghini Aventador Roadster 1 Viola Ophelia, as well as my 1974 Mercedes, which was going to be finished in time for the show on the 8th of April, as well as my shop truck, which would be taking all our flags for our petrol hedonism area. And we've got together another 25 cars. February comes along, and my good friend Zach at Zach's Garage gives me a call out of the blue and says, "Ciro, we're taking the Koenigsegg, we're taking my Aventador that's coming, we're taking this and that, and we've got all these cars coming together, but we want to take the Countach, and my dad only trusts you to drive it." Now, in that moment, I was blown away. I was blown away by fear of meeting my hero. That car that had lived on my poster and had been so iconic in my childhood with the film Cannonball Run. I had to stop and pause and think, would this be a good idea? And then the second thought was, who's going to drive my Aventador? So there's a very short list of people that I trust with my Aventador. I made a call to my buddy Chris, and I said, "Chris, I've just had this amazing opportunity to drive Zach's Countach all the way to Belgium and back. This ain't driving it just down the road to the pub. This is a full-blown opportunity to experience the car for hours and just live that moment, which will be not life-changing, but memorable for the rest of my life." And that's why I'm sitting here with such a big smile on my face, because you know what's coming. It was one of the most enthralling experiences of my life. This particular Lamborghini Countach is a 25th anniversary. It's a 1988 later model. Obviously, the Lamborghini Countach first came to fruition in 1973, and the first models, the Periscopio, came in 1974. If you look at a Periscopio, for me, it's a very bare model, but it's the essence of the Countach. And I've seen 002 in the Lamborghini factory, the green one, because 001 was smashed and destroyed for testing. They've currently recreated 001 in a beautiful yellow finish as it was then, and that was for a special customer at Lamborghini. But the Periscopio, the way that car has evolved into the 25th anniversary, with or without the wing and the additional body kit, as it were, and obviously it was Horatio Pagani's design that came to fruition in the 25th anniversary. For me, it emulated that Cannonball Run car. I know the Cannonball Run car had the big US spec bumpers and the front wing, which was kind of always strange for us to see it from a UK perspective. It's something we didn't understand. It grew on me as well, and having seen the film so many times and just wanted to relive that moment, when I got this opportunity to drive Zach's car, I had to take it. Had to arrange someone to drive my Aventador. Chris got him insured on the car. He was buzzing to be able to drive my car. And I then thought, well, if I'm driving a Countach, I'm going to see my car on the road. And it's one of those moments you never really see your car being driven by somebody else. And to be alongside it with a Countach, as well as the other cars, the Koenigsegg Gregera, which is a one-of-one 3.5 million beauty with diamond-encrusted lacquer and 24-karat gold all over it. It's phenomenal. To have these cars across the motorway and me to be in a Countach, I had the vision of exactly how it was going to be, but there was still this fear overwhelming me that I was going to hate it. And I put it out to a few friends in the community and in our ambassadorship of petrol hedonism about this opportunity. And so many people told me how bad they were to drive. And I'd heard this. So that's why I was kind of like, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to meet my hero? But I also heard that if you found a Countach that had been really well looked after, put together, driven regularly, that you could have a good experience. So the time came. We drove from my house with a convoy, about 10, 15 cars, to Zach's garage, and that's where the car was outside, majestically positioned outside their museum. They've got a phenomenal museum. They've got over 80 cars. They've got everything from a Caterham R to the Ferrari 488 Pista. They have the 400 GT Lamborghini. They've got the Miura, which is absolutely stunning. I've sat in that one. That was quite exciting as well. But the Countach Black 25th anniversary with the wing, it was gorgeous. So my first thing was to sit in the car, and that was great experience. Slid in perfectly. When we got to the first service station, I actually fell out. That was another story. And then we actually set off on the drive. The one thing I can tell you about the Countach, as soon as the gearbox warms up, the gears just slide in and out of each other flawlessly. This car was more comfortable than my Aventador. The seat, headrest, was probably the only car I've ever sat in where you don't have to find it with your head. It was just there supporting your head. And I was overwhelmed by the fact that it was so comfortable. Admittedly, when we got to the first service station, I rolled out of the car because I'm a bit of a larger chap. But the actual experience of changing gears, running through the gears, running it up to 100 miles an hour and back again, being in and out of the traffic was really, really awesome. And like in that first hour, I knew I was going to have the best weekend. We went from Zach's garage, we went to the port at Folkestone, we drove it onto the Eurotunnel, then we got into Belgium, and there we were met with about 50, 60 car spotters that have been tracking us on Instagram to find out our locations and see this amazing array of cars, 25 cars. We had a max power VW Golf in the crew. We had a DB11. We had effectively created petrol hedonism zone for GR8, which was a kind of all the subcultures which make up petrol hedonism. So we had supercars, we had Americana, we had classics, we had highly modified, and we had, of course, the max power car. So we get there, we stop, and again, the Countach, literally driving into the service station with the doors up, just floored everybody. Honestly, the presence of that car, even now, this amount of time on from its first inception in 1974, just knocks people dead. It looks like a spaceship. And my personal experience of being the driver wasn't from just a comfort point of view, it wasn't just from a mechanical, flawless point of view of this actual model. It was the passion, the feeling it gave everybody. You could feel it amongst people as they saw it coming towards them. On the motorway, as we went past people at 100 miles an hour, they were looking in their rearview mirrors and following it past them. What we did was we overtook everybody, and we came to one of the airs on the side of the French roads where you have a kind of toilet stop. We pulled in there, we watched everybody go past, and we had that cannonball run moment where then I chased everybody down and took them all again at a lovely 120 miles an hour. I did tell Zach about that. And the car drove flawlessly. We get to Belgium, we take it into the halls, we park it up, and I'm already looking forward to driving it home. It was that good an experience. And I put this on the forum for the Old School Lambos Club on Facebook and told them about how amazing my experience had been. And everybody agreed. If you have a sorted, looked after Countach, you will have a very good experience of driving it. And therefore, that fear I originally had of driving my hero was valid, because had it been a dog, had it been what we call in the UK a shitbox, then it would have been a really bad experience and it would have been one of those moments where I'd have regretted it. But thankfully, to Zach, his dad, Rob, their mechanic, this car was amazing and it drove brilliantly. And there were times on the way back that I was alone in the car and it was just goose pimply. It was just that moment of the cannonball run, the poster on my wall coming together and being able to just enjoy it. And I think there was a moment where I literally left the whole convoy and just drove, and it was just me on the road. And I was watching myself as having out-of-body experiences, watching this car cruising down the road and what it meant to me to see this car, let alone what it meant to everybody else to see this car. So overall production of Lamborghini Countach over its span is about 2,000 cars. So meeting someone or knowing somebody that's properly driven one is actually quite rare, to be honest. The number of people that may have driven one down the road or worked on one and then driven it is obviously brings those numbers up a bit. But if you're going to go on hearsay of whether a car drives well or not, then you're just going on someone's emotional sentiment at that time, or how the car was set up, if it was actually set up properly at all. My experience of this car was this car drove properly. But for that reason, I was so excited to drive this car. What people had told me was it was clunky, it was heavy, the clutch would probably hurt my leg, and all these, the steering being like shocking and the visibility being awful. For me, you have to drive this car with the mentality that it is a classic car. You can't get in from a Tesla to a Countach and expect it to be a similar experience. You can't expect to get from an Aventador to a Countach and expect it to be the same. It's not. So you have to go into this with the mentality that you're about to drive a classic car, which the technology in 1988 was probably running 1978 technology. It's old, it's clunky. I was enthralled by the lack of visibility. I thought it was brilliant. I love the fact I couldn't see anything. I love the fact that the rearview mirror was insignificant. I love the fact it made noise. I didn't have a stereo. I didn't need a stereo. The soundtrack from that V12 was phenomenal. I sang to it as we drove down that motorway at 100 miles an hour. The gear changes just slipped in and out. Yes, if you're just doing short journeys and the gearbox doesn't have a chance to warm up, it's going to be clunky. Second gear's not going to want to go. But driving that car, I love driving stick. Driving that with the gated manual, with the Vista of 1970s, 80s Italian leather. It was absolutely phenomenal. You've got to have the right frame of mind to drive these cars. You're driving a classic. You need to get yourself prepared for that. You need to have big arms and you need to be strong in the leg because that clutch is going to need the work. But if you feed it nicely, it rewards you. And that was the most rewarding driving weekend of my life so far.
It's Car Trek time again. This week we're releasing our 8th Car Trek series on Freddie's channel thanks to Auto Tempest's continued support. Auto Tempest is honestly where I start most of my days looking for the next car to fill a vacant spot in the garage, or not a vacant spot in the garage just because I'm always looking anyway. But it is the most powerful tool to shop for your next car. They allow you to search all the major listing sites at the same time, even Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist on a national level, which you can't do on their own site. So it's a super cool thing. And they've been an amazing supporter of VINwiki over the years. So please, right now, check them out at the link in the description below to thank them for their support of Car Trek, VINwiki, so that we can keep having this much fun.